There comes a point where trying to fix yourself stops feeling like growth and starts feeling like war. You keep adjusting, correcting, refining, watching your thoughts, monitoring your emotions, judging every reaction as either progress or failure. On the surface, it looks noble, mature even. You want to heal. You want to be better. You want to become someone more peaceful, more disciplined, more loving, more whole. But somewhere along the way, a dangerous confusion slips in. You begin to treat your own soul like a problem to solve instead of a life to understand. And once that happens, your inner world no longer feels like a home. It starts to feel like a courtroom. A strange thing happens when judgment becomes your main tool. You stop listening, really listening, not just to other people, but to yourself. Every dark impulse gets labeled too quickly. Every jealous thought, insecure reaction, selfish desire, ugly emotion, sudden wave of resentment. You rush to push it down, clean it up, explain it away. Yet what is rejected does not disappear. It only goes underground. Carl Jung understood something most people still struggle to accept. Nothing can truly change until it has first been received into awareness without contempt. Condemnation doesn't free what is wounded. It presses down on it. It buries it alive. So the more fiercely you try to correct yourself, the less you can hear what your inner life has actually been trying to say. That's why acceptance is not passivity. It's not laziness. It's not letting yourself become destructive. Acceptance is closer to what a doctor must learn when sitting with a patient whose pain is hard to hear. If there is disgust, moral superiority, hidden judgment, even if never spoken aloud, the other person feels it. Human beings know when they are being managed instead of understood. And the same is true within your own psyche. Part of you knows when your kindness is fake. Part of you knows when your prayers are really punishments dressed in holy language. You can say all the right words about healing, but if deep down you are still revolted by your own shadow, nothing essential moves. Real understanding begins when your inner response changes from, "How do I get rid of this?" to "What is this trying to reveal?" Maybe that's the first hard truth. You cannot hate yourself into wisdom. You cannot shame yourself into peace. You cannot build a real self by standing over your own soul with a whip. Rumi once wrote, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." Most people hear something beautiful in that line, but few realize how demanding it is. Because to enter that field, you have to step out of the role of inner prosecutor. You have to loosen your grip on the need to immediately classify every part of yourself as worthy or unworthy. And for many people, that feels terrifying. Judgment gives a false sense of control. Understanding asks for something much harder: humility, patience, a willingness to sit beside the parts of yourself you would rather hide from the world. Once that begins to sink in, another realization quietly follows. The parts of yourself you most want to fix may be the very parts you least understand. Not because they are evil in some dramatic sense, but because they carry the face of everything you were taught not to be: neediness, anger, fear, envy, pride, desire, fragility. Most people learn early how to create a social self, a presentable self, a useful self, a morally acceptable self. And whatever does not fit that image gets pushed into the basement. Then later, when pain rises from those hidden rooms, they call it failure, they call it regression, they call it proof that they still aren't healed. But maybe what's rising is not proof of failure. Maybe it's a long-abandoned part of your humanity knocking at the door. Carl Jung points towards something deeply uncomfortable here. A person may feed the poor, forgive enemies, speak gently, act spiritually, do all the outer things associated with goodness, and still remain cut off from the one being they have not learned to love, the one inside. The brother within gets called names. The offender within gets exiled. The beggar within gets ignored. The very qualities you would be praised for showing to others somehow vanish when you meet your own darkness. That is why so many people become exhausted on the path of healing. They are trying to offer compassion everywhere except the one place it is most urgently needed. A person can spend years becoming kind in public, while remaining brutal in private, especially in the secret chambers of thought. And here's where the title becomes painfully true. The more you fix yourself, the less you understand yourself, if fixing means forcing yourself into an image of purity. Because understanding requires contact. Contact requires honesty. Honesty requires that you stop turning away from what embarrasses you. Think of it like trying to read a book while tearing out every page you dislike. At some point, there is no story left, only fragments. Then confusion grows. You no longer know why you react the way you do. You don't know why certain patterns keep returning. You don't know why peace feels temporary. How could you? Half the material has been disowned. Half the truth has been edited for appearance. Ancient spiritual traditions hinted at this in different ways. Not always clearly, not always gently, but the wisdom is there. Know thyself, the Delphic maxim says, not improve thyself first, not purify thyself into acceptability. Know thyself. To truly know yourself, you must be willing to meet what is unflattering, inconvenient, even shocking. A wolf may live in the heart beside a lamb. Both belong to the landscape. Calling the wolf your brother does not mean letting it devour the village. It means recognizing that whatever is savage in you also carries energy, instinct, warning, hunger, and truth. Once that is seen clearly, it can be related to, guided, transformed. But first it has to be admitted into the circle of awareness. Otherwise, you remain divided against yourself, smiling on the surface while a civil war rages underneath. Now the path gets even stranger, because the parts of you that seem most troubling may sometimes be carrying a hidden intelligence. Modern people are often drowning in guilt already. Another lecture about sin, failure, and moral deficiency doesn't help much. Most already know they fall short. Most already feel the weight of their own contradictions. What they really need is not another accusation, but a way to understand what their inner conflict is doing there in the first place. Why does the psyche cling to certain patterns? Why does neurosis resist correction? Why do some wounds become stronger when attacked directly? Jung's answer is unsettling, almost upside down. Sometimes what looks like egoism, stubbornness, or even isolation is the psyche's rough attempt to preserve something sacred. A person in pain often turns inward with such force that others call them selfish. And sometimes, yes, selfishness is present. But a quick moral diagnosis misses the deeper movement. Something in the soul may be pulling away from the crowd for a reason. Something may be refusing easy adaptation because easy adaptation would mean betrayal. In those seasons, the ego tightens not merely out of vanity, but out of survival. It's trying, awkwardly, imperfectly, often destructively, to protect a life that has not yet learned how to stand on its own feet. Telling someone in that condition to just be less egoistic is like telling a person with a broken leg to run gracefully. No wonder trust disappears. No wonder healing stalls. What looks ugly from the outside may be the beginning of a deeper loyalty to one's own unlived life. And then comes the loneliness, not the poetic kind people write about under candlelight. Real loneliness, the kind that strips away borrowed identities. Approval fades, roles collapse, old patterns stop working, people misunderstand you, some leave, some can't follow the changes happening in silence. Yet precisely there, in that barren-looking place, a revelation becomes possible. You begin to see what remains when performance falls apart. You begin to feel your own nature not as a theory, but as a living presence. Jung speaks of how what seems evil can turn toward good, and what looked good can sometimes keep evil alive. That reversal, enantiodromia, the turning into the opposite, is one of life's deepest laws. A trait you hated may contain the seed of your strength. A version of goodness you clung to may have been keeping you false. Life has a way of overturning your neat categories so truth can enter through the cracks. So maybe the deeper journey is not about becoming flawless. Maybe it's about ending the war, about letting the warring halves of the personality meet without one trying to annihilate the other. Imagine a kingdom split in two for so long that both sides forgot they belonged to the same land. Every border is armed, every message is mistrusted, every movement is interpreted as threat. That is how many people live inside themselves. Then one day something changes, not because one side wins, but because understanding begins. A bridge is built, a conversation starts, a long-banished voice is finally heard, and in that moment, healing is no longer a campaign of self-improvement. It becomes reconciliation, not neat, not instant, not glamorous, but real, deeply real. The kind of real that doesn't just make you look better from the outside, but makes you less divided when no one is watching.